All right, today we are tackling one of the biggest questions imaginable. We're going to the very, very edge of everything we think of as reality. And it's based on some seriously mind-bending ideas. So let's just dive right in. Think back to when you were a kid, just staring up at the stars. You probably wondered this exact thing. If you just picked a direction and flew straight forever, what would you eventually find? Would you hit some kind of cosmic wall? Or would you just keep going forever? It's a question that messes with everybody's head, from little kids to the smartest physicists. Well, what if I told you the answer is neither of those things? It's not a wall, and it's not endless, empty space. According to the material we're digging into today, the edge of our universe is actually a door. Okay, so to understand what's on the other side of that door, first we have to totally rethink what our universe even is. This whole idea starts with one concept. Our entire universe, everything we know and see, is really just one big, self-contained bubble. Yeah, the fancy term for it is a brain, short for membrane. But honestly, just picture a giant soap bubble. Every single thing, every galaxy, every star, you, me, this whole conversation, it's all happening inside this three-dimensional bubble. Our entire reality is just contained right there. So if we're inside a bubble, that means there has to be an outside, right? So what's out there? Let's go ahead and step through that door we talked about and take a look. This is what's called the bulk. It's this huge, higher dimensional space that our little universe bubble is just floating in. And it is not empty, not at all. It's not made of stuff like atoms and matter. Think of it more like a massive, swirling ocean of pure energy and information. It's basically the operating system that's running the program we call our reality. This gaming analogy actually makes it super easy to grasp. So, our universe? That's just what you see on the screen. It's the world the character is running around in. The bulk? Well, that's the console itself. The hardware, the operating system, all the code that makes the game even possible. And as for what's plugging the console into the wall, well, hold that thought. We're getting there. So picture it, our one little bubble universe, just floating in this massive sea of code called the bulk. But here's the kicker. The part where your brain really starts to stretch. We are not alone out there. Not even close. That's right, the bulk is just packed with other bubbles. Countless of them. And every single one is its own separate universe. This is the multiverse. Our entire cosmic reality is just one of an infinite number of others, all floating together. And these universes aren't all just carbon copies either. The ones floating right next to ours, they're super similar. They're the what-if worlds. The universe where you took that other job, or the one where you actually became a rock star. But the ones farther out in the bulk? Whoa. We are talking radically different laws of physics, worlds where gravity might push things apart, or where time doesn't even move forward.
All right, this is all incredibly cool, mind-bending stuff. But what does it have to do with us, personally? Well, according to this material, it means everything. Because the next great leap for humanity, it's not going to be to another planet. It's going to be out of our universe entirely.
And get this, the source material we're looking at actually puts a date on it, a specific year when this whole transition becomes possible for humanity. 2035. I mean, that's not some far-off sci-fi future. That is right around the corner. So the theory is that our consciousness will no longer need to be locked into our physical bodies. At that point, a person could become what's called a Neo-Causal Agent. And that's basically a fancy way of saying a dimension hopper, a traveler who can literally just step out of our universe. And what could you do? Well, for starters, you could travel through the bulk freely. You could pop into other universes just to, have a look around as a guest. But this next part is the real game changer. You could tap into the experiences of all your other selves, all the other yous out there in those parallel worlds. I mean, just think about that. Anytime you've ever wondered, what if I'd done this instead, you wouldn't have to wonder. You could just know. The source says that regret itself would basically become an obsolete emotion. Okay, so we've gone pretty far out, right? From our universe to the bulk outside it, to the countless other universes floating around inside the bulk. But we have to ask the next question. What's outside of all that? And this is where our language and our brains really start to break a little. Because our whole idea of space, or a location, that's a rule that only exists inside the book. So what happens when you leave the rule book behind entirely? You arrive in a state where things like space and time and dimensions just don't exist anymore. They don't even apply. It's not a place you can go to. It's the absolute foundation of everything, the bedrock of reality itself. This is what the source calls the void, or the origin. It's pure, undefined potential. It's where all the rules, all the universes, even the bulk itself, all of it converges from. So let's go back to that game analogy one last time. If our universe is the game on the screen, and the bulk is the console, then the origin, that's the electricity powering it all. It's the will of the programmer. So what this all really points to is a massive shift in how we see everything. Our universe isn't a single, lonely room. It's more like one part of a giant, sprawling mansion, a mansion with an infinite number of rooms. And if this is how reality actually works, then just knowing this, just understanding it, it's like being handed the master key to that entire mansion. So the final question isn't really about cosmology, it's about you. If you had a key that could open any door to any possible reality, which one would you choose to open first?